Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. I'm really glad everybody could join us. So today is going to be a different kind of webinar than we typically do because we're not talking about business credit. We're not talking about financing. We're not talking about offering business credit financing as a service. What we're talking about today are growth strategies. So I'm invited to a private mastermind that I'm part of, and I speak a couple times a year at the event. And I'd like to kind of go over the biggest lessons that I've learned over the last year or 2 years with business growth. Now, we're what you call a rapidly growing company. We've increased by 300% over the last year, and that's not uncommon for us to see 200 to 300% growth in a year. So what creates that kind of growth? Well, there's kind of guiding principles that I learn every year that help us make these gigantic leaps in growth, some of which are the most valuable principles learned years in the past. And I thought, well, instead of just sharing with this mastermind, which is usually the only group to get the information, I thought, well, here we go. Let me just share this to our tribe so you all can get some benefit from this as well. So today I want to dive into 10 field tested and proven strategies to build a massively successful company that makes you the money you want to live the life you deserve to live. There's going to be part 1 of 2, and then I have another 10 strategies that I'll be jumping into the following week. All of these are very high level strategies you probably aren't familiar with or haven't heard about. So we're going to dive in and decode these things in depth to help you actually succeed. So number 20, viral content. So it's not enough to educate and release content and information. Anybody that knows me knows I'm the biggest on this. You'll probably me. We put out a lot of information and content about how to build business credit and get financing, but putting that content out there itself really isn't enough for success. The content's got to be good content, capable of spreading quickly. And it's not just good content in the form of information, good, valuable information. Plenty of people out there are sharing good, valuable information. The problem is that if you want to share good, valuable information, you have to get it to a point where it has the capability of spreading, of getting engagement, or it will never spread. So as a result, you got to ask yourself a series of questions for every piece of content that you actually end up producing to know whether or not it kind of meets this criteria of what it should meet in order to actually go viral. So one of the first things, just so you know, this is something I've spent a lot of time studying this year. I literally read every single book I could find on virality, all of them. There's none left. I looked on every format and every platform to be able to find exactly the best information on virality that actually existed. And in doing all of it, I found kind of a formula of content that makes content go viral. And I've talked about this before in one of my webinars in depth, so we'll briefly touch upon it here. But there's basically a formula or a series of, let's say, uh, criteria that something actually must meet to go viral. Now, the good thing is that if it meets this criteria, well, then you easily could have something that goes viral very quickly. The bad news is that if it doesn't meet this criteria, well, then more than likely you're not going to have something that's ever going to actually go viral. So one of the things is it remarkable? Does it stand out? Is it shocking? So when we think about things that are shocking, these are the things that really become viral. So all kinds of crazy things going on my computer here because I just logged out because I was getting all kinds of crazy messages. So one of the first things is, again, is it remarkable? Does it warrant remark, right? And an example of this that I've used before is the Blend Tech blender, right, with the iPhone, where somebody used to, will it blend was what it's called, and they would throw things in to see if this blender would blend these things. It was remarkable. If you hadn't seen it, it was something you want to share. Okay, so if you think about the things you do share on social, they're usually something that makes you stop for a second. That's remarkable, something that's completely different and extraordinary, something that's not ordinary. Can someone gain currency from sharing it? The interesting thing about social media is that sharing or gaining currency is the #1 driver of social media. So what I mean by this is, do you gain social currency? Does it make you look better because you're sharing it? And if you think about it, this is really one of the fundamental reasons we all share stuff on social media, because we think it's cool and awesome and different and unique, and we want our friends to see something else that's cool, different, and unique, and hopefully they haven't seen it before. And when they see something cool that we're like, whoa, that was insanely crazy, and then they see it for the first time, they're like, that was insanely crazy, then like we have this cool bond because we're both looking at the same piece of remarkable content and like seeing it for the first time and having the same reaction. It makes me look better Because I share it. The bottom line is, if the people around me haven't seen it, the fact that I'm the one that delivers something remarkable to them is what makes me look good. And the making and feeling of me looking and feeling good is why I share stuff. Okay. And that's why everybody does. So if you look at something and you're thinking about it, designing something where it can get shared, then are you really putting something out there that somebody's going to be like, that's freaking awesome? I want my friends to see this. And when their friends are going to see it and go, dude, that was awesome. Thanks for sharing it. That's one of the things that makes something have the capability of going viral, when it can create that kind of social currency. Can someone compare themselves to others with using it? We love to compare ourselves. This is why quizzes work so well on Facebook. We're just getting started with quizzes ourselves. What is your spirit animal? What's your sex numbers? One I've seen. Where are you percentage wise of partners compared to other people that are women or men in the same age bracket? People want to compare themselves to others. They want to see how they stack up to others. So anything you can do, whether it be a quiz, a contest, any way where you're producing content where somebody can see how they stack up to others, this is something that's one of the core components of virality. So for example, if we're talking about businesses, and the business reporting agencies do a good job of this on their reports, they actually give you a comparison score, where your business credit score is compared to all others in your same industry. People like to see how they compare to others. So this comparison is one of the components that, if it's involved in your content, can give you the basics of virality. Is it exclusive? Recently, there was a promotion from Build-A-Bear that I will use as an example here. And Build-A-Bear, with really no promotion, with basically social word of mouth, had one day where you could get a Build-A-Bear bear for $5. Well, the story is, what really happened was that lines were around the block. It was way more than they'd anticipated, and they had to basically give everybody certificates to get the value and come back a different day because they completely were beyond capacity. That all was done from social sharing. And the reason for that is because, not just saying it's moms, but a lot of moms out there are sharing with other moms because there's an exclusive deal for one day to get a Build-A-Bear for $5. That's enough to warrant a lot of excitement and get them to have more business than they even know what to do with basically not a dime dedicated to actually paid advertisement. So is there a trigger that makes you think of it? Again, the key here is that, and I'll give you an example. Kit Kat Bar always had a campaign that worked very well, stopped working. Somebody in their internal organization, in their think tank, came up with the idea of Kit Kat and coffee, and they had a tremendous campaign with a lot of success that they've carried on for years after. So what they basically do was take a trigger of coffee, something that's common in everybody's day-to-day life, and they associated it with their product. When you can do that, when you can associate a trigger with your product, meaning somebody just sees the product and they think about, or they see something, they trigger and think about you or your product, well, then you've done a good job of doing what this kind of content is supposed to actually do. So let me give you an example. One of the biggest people that is known for virality is Chewbacca Mom. Don't know if you know Chewbacca Mom. She's probably one of the first videos I'd seen that gone viral, where she came out from a Walmart store, I believe it was Walmart, put on a Chewbacca mask that was awesome and was hilariously laughing, and the whole thing was really a great thing. Well, guess what? If I ever see that mask, I promise you I will trigger to that video. That's a trigger. What she didn't do, what she did indirectly, was you can't even see that mask without thinking of her video right now. So that's a perfect, really unanticipated result of setting up an actual trigger that makes you think about the product when somebody sees it or exposed to it. So for example, with us right now as a company, we're trying to let people know, look, if you want to get a loan, if you want to get the most money, if you want to get it at the best terms, you've got to know what your business credit scores are. If we're successful in creating a trigger that you think about bank loan, you think about business credit scores, then we've done what we're trying to do with that video. So establishing that trigger of a funny way, creative way, however it needs to be done to get it to stick in somebody's head that you shouldn't even think about a loan until you actually come in and get business credit scores, that's creating a trigger that's common, that you can associate your product with, that they can come back and think about at a later point in time when the content they're getting exposed to is not in front of them. Does talking about it help others, like through education? So that is very important. You know, in order for them in order for content to really be able to have a potential of going viral, then you've got to, it should provide some kind of education, some kind of knowledge, some kind of teaching. You know, if it does that, then what happens is through education, you're basically providing value. Okay, if you're not providing value, then it doesn't have as much capacity to go viral. Now, all virality doesn't mean you have to have all of these things. In some of these cases, more will help you. But in this cases, you know, when we look at Chewbacca Mom example, that wasn't a situation where she provided education. So there's all kinds of things that create virality, but virality has some, if not more, of these components. So is it being spoken about in the form of a story? Again, you know, we remember stories much better than facts. Okay, this is why even from cavemen, we drew drawings on walls instead of actually giving people lists and facts, etc. So if you've got a 2-minute video, then tell a story. And people will remember a story more than they're going to remember the actual content itself. Does it have a compelling headline? Okay, we have this really going on in our content team. Our content team is great at writing content, but they suck at copywriting. And copywriting is what matters, because copywriting, choosing a great image, choosing a great headline, that's what gets people into the content. So what content says is, well, no one reads our content. And what we say is because you're not giving them a reason to. So we're training our content team to come up with these kind of compelling headlines, because it's compelling headlines. This is how it works. An image makes somebody stop for a brief second in social media. They look at the headline. The headline is what pulls them in and gets them to click and brings them into the content. So if you don't have a good headline, they're never going to read whatever your content is. Now, the best at places like this are places like Gawker that used to be around. Then you know, Dig and Drudge Report. These are some of the best for clickbait headlines. But you don't want clickbait. You don't want to not deliver on what your headline is saying. You want to deliver on it. But again, having a compelling headline that pulls somebody in is very, very, very important to content going viral. Is it numerical? This also works as well. Listicles. Listicles, the top 5 reasons of this, the top 7 ways you could build business credit, the top 9 types of business loans you can get. It's a listicle. Our brains work very well with lists. It works so well that this is what Google does with almost all position 0 content. Position 0 content in Google's when you search Google and it pulls up your term and the description of your term. In a lot of cases, those descriptions, it's taking the headline and sub-headlines from the article and it creates bullets even when the articles don't have bullets. It took us time to figure this out because we kept seeing Google was making everything into a bulleted list, even though the content wasn't bulleted. And what we realized was it was taking the sub-headlines and creating its own bulleted list because it knew better than the writer that the bulleted list was what people responded to. So again, all content doesn't have to be numerical list, but numerical lists give you the best chance, or one of the best chances, of creating content that has the potential of going viral. Okay, is it visually appealing with an image or video? Okay, that everything should be visually appealing. Again, we're in a world, for example, in social media where you put something in front of somebody, what happens is the image is or video is what makes them stop, the headline brings them in, and then hopefully the rest of your content converts. So image is better than no image. Motion GIF, which is an image that has motion, is better than an image, and a video is better than everything. So as long as you're including some kind of visual imagery, it's really, really, really going to help you. So getting influencers. Well, almost all content that does go viral does so because influencers share it. So if you want a free way to get a lot of exposure, you got to build relationships with influencers. Okay, that's what really becomes important. So here's what I've noticed about virality. I'm going to teach you something that could be one of the most valuable lessons if you really listen and apply what I'm saying here, and can help you grow in a way that other businesses can't because they don't have the same exposure. For one, all viral content has some of those components of virality. Matter of fact, it's so important that we created a virality checklist to actually go with it that our team uses, where they assign points for every one of those different numbered that I just showed you are. So if it's a listicle, they get 10 points. If it's got a great image, it gets another 10 points. We don't even release content until it has a score of 50 or higher. The higher score, the more likely it can go viral. So the next step, once you have content that really has the ability to go viral, is what is really called, I don't know if it's called this or I just made it up, but it's 1 to a million. What you're looking for is people that have huge followings where by getting to the one person, they can get a message out to a million or more. So a perfect example of this is my great friend, Derek Harper. Derek is really big in the consumer credit industry, and he does a lot of stuff on Facebook. So that being said, what happens with him is he actually comes in, does a lot of live training on Facebook, and has a huge following on Facebook. I don't. I don't go live on my personal page. I don't even post on my personal page. Okay. I go live on the business page. So it's much harder to get a lot of people into my live stream. Every time Derek sees I'm live and he joins in, he as a friend gives me the courtesy of a share. When he does that, if you've ever been in my live streams, it happens every time. I go from about 20 or 30 people in the live stream to instantly between 250 and 300 people. He, by leaps and bounds increases the amount of subscribers, not doubling or tripling or quadruple, but like I don't know, like 800, 900%. He increases the amount of people that are there. He's an influencer that shares one piece of content, and his one share results in hundreds of people coming into my live stream, 1 to a million. So when we look at viral content, what we find is that content one has the components of going viral that I just showed you. Once you have the content, what typically happens is an influencer shares the content. So we're familiar with this in Oprah's world, right? Oprah shares a book from her book club, and it instantly becomes a #1 bestseller. That's an example of an influencer. She takes a little known about book, she talks about it to her 1 to a million platform, then millions of people hear it, and all of a sudden they start talking about it, they spread it on viral, everything goes crazy from there. So it starts with content. Stage 2 are influencers. It's building relationships with these influencers who actually have the 1 to million impact, that can take your piece of content that is good and has the capability of going viral, and they can share it to their million+ people. And in doing so, you then put a fire behind the content. It gets all kinds of additional engagement. Typically, some of this is on social platforms. The social platforms see the engagement, they show it to more people, and you've got a piece of content that at that point is really catching fire. So there's a lot of ways you can build these relationships. First, you got to find the influencers to work with. Now, there's several sources you could use to do so, and here's 4 examples of it: GroupHigh, Sission, UpInfluence, and Clear. Now, there are a lot of influencer marketing platforms. I spent a lot of time researching, and these are the 4 that I like the best. And personally, UpInfluence and GroupHigh are 2 that we're working with a lot right now. What these will allow you to do is basically research and pull somebody up that actually has content or that actually has a big following, and it'll even show you the following that they actually have. So this will really help you to do, hold up for 1 second. Well, that was awkward. Sorry about that. I have my security dog here in the office today, and she saw somebody come in. So these are the best ones that I've seen out there, giving the ability to be able to help you find influencers. And here's a look at these actual results. So you can see here, doing just a search for business pulls up companies, and you can see here the audience size, that we can actually see the size, we can see their following on each of their social media channels, we can see recent content that they've written, etc. So finding influencers becomes very important, and using those kind of platforms can help you actually find influencers. Now, after you found those influencers, well, then next you got to approach them. And you got to realize some want to get paid. That's as simple as it is. Some you may get $50 to or $100 to, and they'll gladly share whatever it is that you want them to share. Others, not so much. Others might not want to get paid. So others, you're going to want to get their attention. You're going to do something for them that's awesome, something that's unexpected, something that stands out. It's a longer process. It's a shorter process to go to them and say, hey, look, I'd love to form a relationship with you and see if they do have a program to share for money. It's simple. You pay them money, they share. But if not, well, then it all comes down to building a relationship. So first thing you got to do is really get on their radar. Start following them on social media. Start liking their stuff. Start commenting on their stuff. What's going to happen is you're going to show up some which way or form in their actual world, because they're going to see that you're engaging. They're going to see you're liking. They're going to see you're retweeting, especially on Twitter, right? Nobody retweets on Twitter anymore. So in the fact that you're engaging with them on these social channels puts you on their radar. Okay, then there's a million things to do after that. You can approach them and go, hey man, I saw this video, I saw this piece of content. Would you be okay if I shared this with my entire audience, because I think that they may be okay? Another one, great one, start a podcast. It's a great way to bring influencers in, because you can, or somebody else from your office can go, hey, look, I think you'd be a great guest for this show. Would you like to come on? I'd like to talk to you more about, whatever it is that your expertise is. Another great one that I saw is make a top 10 list. So, hey, here's the top 10 biggest influencers in business lending, right? So if I do the top 10 biggest influencers in business lending, and then I go to somebody and I say, hey, this is Ty Crandall with Credit Suite. We're publishing an article on the top 10 top 10 lenders in the business space, and you're on our list. And I'd like to talk to somebody there about, more information about your company so I can get you guys promoted the right way. So a list featuring them as one of the top 10 in their field, guys, that's going to get their attention. They're going to pay attention to that. Send them an awesome gift. Send them something unexpected. Hey, I follow your content. It provided immense value to me, and I just wanted to give you a little thank you. So here's X, A, B, C, D, whatever it is. So when I go to podcast movement, or not podcast movement, when I went to social media marketing world, this was a common example used by podcasters. And here what was crazy. Several of them brought with them something that had a big impact, and it wasn't even on this topic. But for example, I remember one of the big podcast guys, and I remember who he was, he loved Back to the Future. So he brought up a picture that somebody painted of him in this DeLorean. It meant so much that he put it on a freaking plane and flew it halfway across the country to be able to show this to other people. So doing something that's rare, that's unexpected, that's awesome, that stands out really can get on their radar. It makes them notice, especially when you're not asking for anything in return. You're just saying, hey, you had this content and it made an impact in my life, so I just did this cool thing. I thought you might like it. Or, just to say thank you. Well, now they've seen you following them on social. You just did something really cool. They're going to reply to that. Now you have a conversation starter. Maybe you do lunch. Maybe you do a quick call. And then you start talking to them about getting their content to your database. Don't even talk about yourself. Hey, what can I do to get your information out to more of my people, because I think they'll really engage? It's only a matter of time before you realize that you guys have synergy together, and then you can start talking to them and bringing up the conversation of them sharing your stuff as well. So again, a lot of things you can do here. Follow them on social, build the relationship. Okay, use them to share that viral worthy content before anybody else does so, and it makes it easier for the next step of this process. So again, you can look into this. There's so many different ways you can get in front of influencers, but what it really comes down to is that when somebody does something rare, cool, and unexpected for you, you say thank you. You give a shout out. So if you're doing the kind of things and treating them the way that you would want to be treated, and the things that gets you people on your radar, they're probably going to respond in kind. Now you have viral content, then you got it to an influencer. There's another stage in the process of what happens in virality. The next thing that happens is media sources pick this up. So content's created that could go viral. It goes to usually an influencer, a 1 to a million, that goes, you got to see this. This Chewbacca mom is crazy. Then what happens is media sources that follow those influencers start to see it, and then they start picking it up, and you move through sometimes a low to medium to high level of medium sources. And let me show you what this means. So almost all content that goes viral goes through media. If you want a free way to get a lot of exposure, you write the viral content, you share it with influencers. Next, you share it with low-level bloggers. Low-level bloggers are ultimately bottom-level news stations. They're local news station. They're Fox 10. They're Fox Tampa Bay. They're the Cincinnati Enquirer, which I see everywhere. So these are low-level bloggers. They're local authorities. Okay, next, they share it with mid-level bloggers. These are like Huffington Post. And then from there, your top media sources pick it up. Your CNN, your Fox, all of your major news stations. Now that you're consciously aware, if you pay attention to news, this is how it works. Your low-level bloggers are desperate for paid shares. They'll take content wherever they can get it. So if you go to a low-level blogger and go, hey man, Like, we just released this article. It's on fire. Everybody loves it. So-and-so, Gary Vee just shared it. You guys should cover this. Well, guess what? You just did their entire job for them. You gave them content that guarantees them a bunch of page views because they already see massive engagement. They already see authorities sharing it. They already see tons of engagement. You just made their job easy because you served up the content that already has the potential to go viral. It's exactly what they want. They serve it up and the other media sources follow because the medium are pulling from the low level and the high level are pulling from the medium level. Just look at it. Next time you look at your news, look at where they're getting stories from. Not all of them. They have their own writers, obviously, but in a lot of cases, they're getting some of their stories, if not a lot of their stories, referencing other media sources that they got that stuff from. Cincinnati Enquirer is one I see a lot of time all over the place getting referenced. So when you combine these three, it's extremely powerful because you create content that has the ability to go viral. You bring in influencers. By the way, I told you how to do that at no cost and take you from 1 to 1 million, one person to get you to 1 million. Then they get the content engaged. They start getting tons of action on the content. The action of the content is social proof that you can then use to go to media sources. And then the media sources, if you get to low level, medium level, and high level, will typically follow. So I know it sounds maybe a little too complex. That's great. That means your competitors won't do it. And the reality is you can go to places like Upwork and hire somebody that's a researcher to get you these low-level bloggers for $3, $4 an hour. So it's fairly affordable to be able to build these lists to do this kind of thing. Now, again, imagine the power of that and how much ability you have to basically control and make content at will go viral. So make the long play. You know, look, one way to get a lot of prospects that your competitors won't have, well, this is definitely going to be it. Think of long-term strategies to get leads that others just won't try and duplicate. Yes, it will take your time to do, but you gain something unique that gives you a massive competitive advantage at the same time, okay? So example is what we just talked about, right? Write viral worthy content, accumulate a list of influencers, promote it to them. Once they share it, go to low level media sources and let them push it up the chain. Okay, so it's a simple example of how this works. Okay, will anybody else in your space do this? Of course not. No competitors would do this because it looks too complicated. So when you master this, think about having control over media sources and influencers and how much power that could be to your actual business. As a matter of fact, I think I just registered for a webinar today or tomorrow on authority marketing. It's talking about how this company jumped from no sales to 25 million using their relationship with influencers to do so. So it's a perfect example. Another perfect example for us is quizzes. What we've found is that there's a hole in the market when it comes to data, when it comes to survey data, meaning we went to find stats on how many people are applying for loans and getting denied, how many people are applying for consumer credit versus business credit that are business owners. The only article we found was from NAV 3 years ago. And as I started to research, I realized that Entrepreneur, Inc., Forbes all had featured that article. So these major sources have an appetite for data, for survey data. 1,000 business owners were surveyed and 36% said they struggled to get a loan, et cetera, et cetera. So what we realized was that there was a hole with data in the market that big sources would definitely jump on and eat up. But how do we get the data? We thought about surveying our database. There's no way we have enough people reply, even though it's big. Asking people to do a survey is not something favorable. We thought about hiring a research company. That's ridiculously expensive. So what we came to a conclusion with is let's use quizzes. Quizzes are places where people voluntarily give all kinds of data just to see their end result of how they score against others. So we created quizzes that ask questions and give them cool answers that they want and want to share. For example, does your business have the ability to be 8 figures? Is your business failing? How does your business credit score compare to other people? And in doing so, we're gathering information and data that we then get to our content team that's going to write these articles about this. Hey, in a recent survey of 500 business owners, this happened, 36% are struggling to get loans, 42% are getting it from here. We know that content statistical data will play well with media sources. We know it would also do well with influencers as well. So again, we're coming up with this elaborate process to do quizzes, to get answers to questions, to use the data, to write an article, and then write an article that goes to influencers, that goes to low-level media sources. This is a process that nobody else will do. So we dominate this. We have a huge way of getting customers. It's very successful that nobody else is going to do. Other examples of more simple long plays is YouTube. YouTube didn't do anything for us the first year we had it. Now YouTube accounts for like 15% or more of our sales, because as that started the season, we started to gain more subscribers and followers, and the social media platform started pushing our content and things go viral. Same thing with podcast. For every one successful podcast host I talk to 20 others that quit early in the process. Those are long plays. You don't start a podcast to get immediate downloads and sales. You do it because long term you think it will generate that for you. So again, these are kind of examples of long plays. And when you're working on long plays instead of short ones, well, then that's really going to work for you. It's what I find is it's where you reach a tipping point in the business. You go from just doing the direct response stuff that'll get you immediate returns, then you combine it with the stuff that you've been working on that's longer term, the building of the social channels, the podcasts, all these things. And when those two converge, you reach a tipping point with explosive growth. I hope you heard that, because we're in a pretty good place, right? You might not talk to too many other people that are growing at 300% a year. How it's done is exactly how I just described to you. You focus on your direct response stuff. Example, Facebook ads. I'm going to pay X for an ad. I'm going to expect Y in return. That's what everybody's doing. And then you got to do the other side of this too, which is build the long-term stuff, do the long play, do the YouTube, do the social channels, do the podcast. Start thinking about things that could be very complicated, that could take time to develop. But you know, if you develop these kind of strategies, nobody else would follow suit. That gives you huge advantages. And when the long play stuff starts converging with the short-term stuff, that's when you really reach levels of absolutely explosive growth. So a lot of problems in the journey that we've had so far. And when they encounter them, first thing you got to do is take complete ownership of the problem. I have a perfect example of this today. So I literally have a client, and this is what happened. We have a client that came in, and our ultimate customers get access to a sales funnel, emails. We set it all up. All they have to do is just deploy it. He literally took thousands of leads without permission, dropped him into his funnel with ActiveCampaign, as you might imagine. He got tons of spam complaints. ActiveCampaign shut down his system and prevented him from ever sending any more emails. We dedicated, I don't know, 50, 60, 100 hours of time on this. Ultimately, we just gave him his money back. We want everybody to be happy, give his money back. He literally reached out to me today asking for damages as a result of what occurred. So it's kind of crazy. You've got somebody that literally did something, spammed a bunch of people, got caught, got a system shut down. And when you listen to his wording, it's everybody else's fault that happened, even though it clearly could not be anybody else's fault except for who's spamming. If you ever want to fix your problems, if you ever want to really be successful, you can't do what people like that do. Those people will never become successful because they're not taking ownership of their problem. It's the very first step. And one of the reasons that I think people don't take ownership is because people think it means that they're doing something wrong or that they're admitting to do something wrong. And that's not what it is. It's about you being able to do things better. So you have to shift this mindset. You need to take complete ownership and accountability for things, even when they're not your fault, because there's always things and situations you could do better. There's things you could do to improve. So if you take ownership of it, then you can realize the things you could do better. And in the future, whenever faced with that, whatever it was that caused the problem, you're going to be able to deal with that significantly better. So next, after you've done this, you said, look, yep, we could have done better there. Okay, not to say, yep, we did everything wrong. This was completely our fault. It's not a matter of fault. Never has been. It's just a matter of, could you have done things better here? Yep, we absolutely could have done things better there. What's the next step? Well, got to fix the problem, whatever the underlying issue is. Okay, so when you have a situation, the next thing you have to do is fix that problem, whatever it may be. If somebody's unhappy, somebody's upset, then get with them. Can you help make them happy? They're not happy, give them the money back. Whatever fixing the problem is may mean to you. Okay, next after that, you've got to research and fix the underlying problem. Just because you fix the problem of why maybe somebody wasn't happy, doesn't mean that now that you fixed it with them that it won't occur. If they're not happy because of reasons ABC, is there validity to ABC? Are there things you could do to change and improve ABC so the next person is happier? Maybe this person is just somebody that's desperate for money and just pulling at straws to try to get money wherever they can. That's what we deal with for almost anybody that wants a refund. It's nothing to do with us. They're just desperate for money and they're trying to go anywhere they can to get money. So again, you got to fix that underlying issue if there's something there to be fixed. And if you take an ownership and go, yeah, we can do better here. And here you're happy now. I'm glad you're happy. But why was this person ever unhappy? Well, they were unhappy because of A, B, and C. And A, yeah, I don't really agree with them on A, and that doesn't really make a lot of sense because it would hurt the rest of our customers if we reverse that. But B and C, yeah, we could definitely improve B and C. What can you do to fix the underlying problem? Next, educate and teach your team how to avoid this in the future. You figured out the problem, you figured out what solved it. Now you got to get your team and go, guys, look, had this problem. It was caused by this. We fixed this. Here's what we did to fix this. I just want to let you know that we did this to fix the problem, and let us know if you ever see the problem again. And then think about the signs you missed that the problem was about to occur. This is the most interesting thing I've experienced over the last year. What I've realized is that my best moments of thought, where I really think of big growth strategies for the business, come when my back is against the wall. And when I've talked to my peers, we're all on the same page. Everybody says the same thing. They're like, look, I know I need to change. I know I need to do these things. But like this event occurred, I almost lost my merchant account and it freaked me out. And we did A, B, C, D, E, F as a result of that. Well, why didn't you do A, B, C, D, E, F before the threat of losing your merchant account ever occurred? Okay, and that's what it really comes down to. What signs did you miss? So using that as an example, we actually had that same thing happen. We've used the same merchant account for years. Chargebacks weren't up. We manage all that. Everything's low, but they just shut us off abruptly. No notice, just stopped being able to process credit cards. Apparently they got bought by another bank and that's how they do business. So it left us scurrying to get a merchant account, which we were able to do very quickly through our actual bank, luckily, and we're good. But it created a serious problem that all of the money coming in the business we could not process. So that's a big problem. But when I look back, there was all kinds of notices from this. Several of my friends in the consumer credit side of the business had their merchant accounts shut down. My merchant account provider came to me and said, you should probably consider getting another account. I said, oh, I will. I had other merchant account salespeople that say, we want to get you another account, a better account. I said, no, I'm loyal to my merchant guy. So when I look back, there were clear signs of what I wanted or of what we needed to do that were present that we ignored until the merchant account was lost. Then back is against the wall, then disaster hits. Now we have multiple merchant accounts and we've done all these things to protect ourselves. But in looking back, what were the signs? Be honest with yourself. What did you really miss sign-wise? Because what happens is once you start thinking about signs that you missed, you can become more observant of those signs in the future. It becomes very important. You say, these three things happen. Now that I think about it, a lot of my buddies started losing merchant accounts. I should have, at that moment, looked into a backup. My own guy told me to get a backup. I should have done. I mean, when you start thinking back, you're like, I should have done that. Well, what am I going to do in the future? Well, if I know there's a problem that even other people are having, I'm going to think about, could we possibly suffer from that same problem? And my buddies are losing their merchant accounts. Could we suffer from that same problem? Yeah. It would be devastating if we lost our merchant account. Then take action. Fix the problem before the problem ever occurs. And that allows you to do that only if you really are honest and look back at these signs that you could have potentially missed. Then build in KPIs, key performance indicators, to monitor to make sure that that problem doesn't happen again. Build something in to make sure it doesn't. In our case, we have all kinds of accounting alerts that go off when we reach even the lowest of thresholds for chargebacks. We don't have very many chargebacks, never have. But sometimes people charge back. Of course, typically in almost every case, it's because they needed money and were embarrassed and didn't want to come to us because it wasn't like we weren't performing. They just needed money. But in those situations, what can we do? Now we have metrics that monitor where we are to indicate that there's problems. And those are monitored by somebody in our company that owns that responsibility. So if you think about what we did, we took complete ownership. Yep, we could do better. What can we do better in the future? We fixed the problem to immediately resolve that. Then we figured out what caused the underlying problem. What was the underlying problem to begin with? Then we educate and teach everybody, oh, this is what we found. Here was the problem. Here's how it blew up. Here's what we could have done to stop it that we missed. Here's the changes we made. Okay, and then actually, I got ahead of myself there. Then you think about what the signs that you missed and become more alert to those, and then put together some kind of measuring system and even assign it to somebody else if you want to make sure that that problem potentially can't happen again. Guys, look, there's no such thing as failure, okay? my mortgage company completely failed, went out of business, drove my whole family to bankruptcy. But the reality is the lessons I learned there helped me grow this business at a ridiculous pace because of the lessons I learned. The problem is that when you fail or things go bad and you get into a little hole, don't ever do that. Feel blessed that you are experiencing problems, because being the fact that you're exposed to a problem you haven't been exposed to before gives you a chance to put in place systems to make sure that that problem never occurs again, and gives you a huge advantage over anybody else that experiences that problem for the first time. The key is to go through this process, to recognize there's a problem, to take ownership, to fix the problem, fix the underlying problem, educate everybody on your team, figure out what the signs you missed, learn to be more aware of those in the future, and then come in and make sure that you're building a measuring system to know if those things happen again. Delegate and monitor. Obviously, delegation is important. Look, if you ever want to work on your business and not in your business, you have to learn to delegate. Every business owner that I've seen goes through the same thing. You start a business, well, everyone without venture capital. You start a business, you don't have money, you have nothing but time. It might be the only thing you have, even if you're working part-time doing the business while you're trying to work a full-time job. And so you start doing everything, well, because you have no money to pay other people. Then you quickly become overwhelmed because you take on every responsibility. Then you have some money and you could hire, but you have this idea that what you're doing, you're the only one that can do it or nobody can do it better. And then you're in this rut where you can't grow because, you're trying to do everything and not letting other people take over. It's a very hard thing to let go. And when I talk about my experience of growing Credit Suite, I use languaging like it was taken away from me, because that's how it makes me feel. I loved selling. I loved talking to people on the front end and getting them to come in until I couldn't sell anymore. And then I felt like that was taken away from me. It was something I enjoyed, but I still got to manage our sales team. But I couldn't do it anymore. And then another sales manager comes in and takes my place, and that was taken away. And I used to do the marketing, and that was taken away. I feel like it's taken away from me. So I can relate to what you're saying, because these are things that I've enjoyed doing, but you have to let go, because delegation is the only way the organization can ever really grow, even if you're using $3, $4 an hour contractors from places like Upwork. So when you delegate, there are certain things you should do. Delegate the task by teaching how to do the task. Video works great. We use a service called Loom. Loom, free. Record your screen. Can also record your video cam and your screen at the same time. We use it to just record instructions. What we do is we do a task and we use Loom to video us doing the task. So we're basically giving video instructions showing the task being done. It's a great way to actually train. And then, for the record, we put this into a wiki or into one database where all of our training is housed, so future people can use it. Depending on where you are in the growth of the business determines how important that may be. So make sure the delegee takes complete ownership. You have to know this is now your task. You own this task. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. This is my task. Make sure the instructions are in a wiki, again, for others to access. Okay, don't just film a Loom video and then send it to somebody and say, do this task. Put that in a database where anytime you need that task done in the future, you have that training. Maybe that person doesn't work out and you have to let him go. At least you have all the training that you can easily expose somebody else to, making it easier for you to do what you need. Set up KPIs to monitor that task is getting done. This is monitored by you or assigned to a manager in the area. Again, set up a metric to be able to track that. Domo, Graphly, there's a million places depending on the databases you're using to track metrics. We use something called Graphly. This works very well for us, and it's very cheap, and it integrates with Infusionsoft. Now we moved up to Domo, which is very expensive and not something anybody would want to get into in the beginning stage of the business, or probably could afford to. So find the one that works for you. There's all kinds of great monitoring services that are very cheap, including Graphly, which I think is under $50 a month if you use Infusionsoft. So now what we do is we say, okay, you own the task, right? So a perfect example of this is we have our actual support team allowed to sell product, and they get a commission if they want, if they sell the product. So we have a measurable of this. We said, hey, look, here's the deal. We have a breakdown. What's happening? Well, they're talking to our support team. They want to buy stuff. Support's trying to bump it to sales. There's too much of a delay and things are being lost. We need to empower support with what they need, which is the ability to make a sale at point of sale if they want to. How can we monitor if this is going to work? Well, we have a whole board in Graphly just dedicated to that division that tracks every rep and the kind of sales they're making. So we put together a process. Here you go. If you're going to sell it, here's the script, here's the process. Here's the videos that describe it. And then we have a board that we can look at any time that gives us the graphs and metrics of the results of what they're actually doing. So that's how you delegate. You got to find a way to teach them, typically through video, make sure that they take ownership of it, put the training somewhere else you can access it, and then put in place measurables for you to make sure, a manager to make sure that that task is actually getting done. So you can make videos that combine great branding and great sales all in one. So this is something new. We're getting ready to go to TV. And as we get ready to go to TV, I admit I'm a little freaked out. You know, I've never done anything with TV before. I don't know anything about TV commercials. The spend is enormous to even get your foot in the door. And I need to know that what we're going to put out there is going to have some basis of success without ever spending the money that it's going to cost to put it out there to figure it out. So I started to look into this, and I found something I recommend to all of you, which I'll show you here in a minute on slide 11, I believe, which is called Harmon Brothers University. Harmon, Harmon Brothers University. Now, you may not know who Harmon Brothers are. I didn't either, actually, until I found this course on Facebook. I love you, Facebook, for showing me cool things that I would like to buy, and I did buy. So with this, they done the Squatty Potty commercial, the Poo-Pourri commercial, Fiber Fix. They done one for infusions, or no, they did one for ClickFunnels. They also did a really cool one for Chatbooks, and you might not know that, but Chatbooks is where this woman's walking through her busy life, and her kids are shooting bow and arrows and jumping off the roof and all this crazy stuff. And it starts with the scene of her getting out of the bathtub fully clothed, talking about she doesn't have time for a bath. She actually fell in the bathtub while counting how her son is long is holding his breath. These guys have mastered a whole art of video that most people don't understand. They're the only ones doing these kind of videos, and they're crushing it and knocking home runs to a point where they could charge $500,000 to work with somebody to do a commercial. So how do you do it without spending $500,000? Well, here's how it works. They do two things that nobody else does. They combine great branding and great sales all in one video. That's ultimately their model. It's how it works. They take branding, but think Budweiser, Clydesdale horses, not designed to sell beer, designed to improve the brand. And they take direct response ads, think infomercials where something is being sold, and they combine the two. They combine an infomercial with a branding ad, something that talks about the company and the brand, and something that actually sells something at exactly the same time. It's the only kind of commercials like this that exist. Now, in order for this to work, your concept should be surprising but fitting. Full disclosure, I'm giving you what I got from this Harmon Brothers University course. I give them full credit for this content, and you should look into this course because it's well worth the investment. So your concept should be surprising but not fitting. So if you think about Poo-Pourri, for example, it started by having a British woman sitting on the toilet talking with all kinds of crazy adjectives about her just taking a poop, however you want to refer to it. So that is surprising because we're not used to seeing a British woman sitting in a toilet stall talking about her pooping, right? So that's immediately surprising. It's a hook. It's a shock factor. It makes us stop. But it's still fitting as well. Is a woman sitting there in an office toilet talking about how she's trying to cover her poop fitting to the product? Of course it is, because that's something that a lot of people would have that exact same problem. It's surprising, but it's fitting. Your script will have a hook. The hook in that case is the woman, British woman, sitting on the potty talking about pooping. The other hook, as I mentioned, with Chatbooks, the very first scene is her in a shower. She said, people ask me all the time, having 3 kids, I have time to take a bath. She stands up fully clothed. She goes, I don't have time to take a bath. She goes, I just fell in the tub while I was measuring how long my son could hold his breath. And he's sitting there with the scuba mask. It's a hook. It's completely shocking to see a fully clothed woman in a bubble bath stand up and be completely soaked. Establish the problem, okay? But so she's establishing the problem in that example of Chatbooks. And I'm actually going to probably go to Poo-Pourri, because Poo-Pourri is probably one that many people have seen. So Poo-Pourri, obviously the problem is poop stinks. Pretty obvious, right? And when it stinks, when you're at your, somebody you're dating's house or at work or all these other places, then it creates all of these problems. So the next is a solution. In this case, it's Poo-Pourri. She introduces Poo-Pourri. And if you look at her commercial, she introduces it with a simple graphic that explains how the product works in its simplest form. And the graphic shows water and poop nuggets flying in it. shows a spray hit the water, shows a film being created, shows when poop hits the film, it releases fragrant odors. In that one simple visual, if you look at Poo-Pourri, she completely explained the solution and exactly how it worked. Okay, next, you want to come in and go to a call to action, what you want them to do. So where they go to buy. You can click on the video right now and learn more. You can click on the video and get this. You can click, in their case, they're actually selling product. Then they establish credibility and deal with doubts. This is where they overcome all of your doubts. So for example, in the Poo-Pourri commercial, she says, yes, this is a real product, and yes, it does work. So she addresses the fact that people saying, is this a joke? Is this for real? So she addresses those actual objections. Okay, if you look at the Chatbooks commercial, the mom says, hey, look, no, this is not the kind of photo book that you edit, you like hyper weird mom. And she even kind of makes a joke about the kind of mom that spends all the time cropping and editing pictures. She's like, these are beautiful as is. So she's using it to overcome an actual objection. So this is the part where they basically come in and they start overcoming objections, another call to action, and then an outro so they can click. If you look at the Squatty Potty outro, the kids are eating ice cream, which was just pooped by a unicorn. And then the main character is giving them toilet paper as paper towel to wipe off their faces. It's just an outro giving them time to click. So this is their model. And again, it's worth going through their course, but if you look at their videos now knowing this, you'll understand what I'm saying. Hook, establish problem, state solution, call to action, establish credibility, call to action to outro. If you're following this course, even on short videos, it can net you very good results. So creating joint ventures, a webinar that you can create that provides education while pitching your service at the end. We do this. I'm doing this tonight, 5 o'clock. So if you want to be there, come check it out, see what's going on. So this is a webinar that you create that talks about your product. Now, our webinars are like this, and we don't do a lot that sell, but the ones that sell follow this format. One, we teach and educate. So what is business credit, how it works, the benefits, tons of real examples of people getting results. Then we go into a brief overview of exactly how to do the steps, how to actually do that process, how to go through and build business credit. Then we go through, demo our solution and talk about why it makes so much sense, features, benefits, benefit of benefit, and then we go to a close. Well, this has been very effective for us. We rarely did it, even though the whole company was founded by these sales webinars. We stopped at some point, just became strictly education, which is something I advise against because we lost track with what our primary goal was, which was to sell. So we come in and, you come to our webinar, you're getting 75 minutes of great education and then 15 minutes of a pitch. You don't want the pitch, leave. Okay, but we give a ton of value for people even when they don't buy. So when you create this, you're basically selling your product while providing great education. And you first want to do this with your own database. Then you want to go and form JV relationships. These are companies that share similar customer types to you. They might do joint venture relationships. They may not do joint venture relationships now, but they have a similar demographic to you, and they also have a database of people that they're engaging with. Okay, have them promote your webinar to their database and then pay them affiliate commission for every sale you make. Now, joint venture is called joint venture for a reason. They're oftentimes going to want you to share to your own database as well. So something to keep in mind. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes the money alone can help them. But you have to think about this. I don't know how much money we end up paying to each affiliate that we have, but it's up there, $500 to $1,000, depending on how much of a sale we make. And all they have to do is literally send 4 emails to their database. So we had a webinar that we did last week where we made 11 sales. So that person's already looking at like, I don't know, $9,000 to $11,000 because they sent out 4 emails on our behalf and we did everything else and they will just earn those commissions. So it's hugely beneficial to the receiving party because they're getting paid a bunch of money and you're getting a chance to come in and promote your content to a whole different market or segment of the market that you wouldn't have done before. Remember what I said, 1 to 1 million. How do you grow hyper growth? You get in front of the one person that has the big audience, the 1 to 1 million. Well, these aren't 1 to 1 million, but these might be 1 to 100,000. They might have a database of 100,000 people, that by getting them to that one person and then putting the message out, you're getting in front of 100,000. So remember, hyper growth is about acceleration. That's how we accelerate it. I don't need to go talk to 100 customers one at a time. I need to find the one guy that has the 250,000 database that he could send the 4 emails, or she could send the 4 emails, and then in return, I get my 100 customers as a result. So joint venture webinars, when you have a good system, you have a webinar that you can test that sells, you have a good process, is a very effective way of growing, of hyper growth. Create your own group. So having your own group on Facebook or LinkedIn gives your prospects a place to go to learn and talk more with peers. Look, I've said this for well over a year. You need to get a group immediately on LinkedIn and Facebook, immediately. And here's why. Microsoft bought LinkedIn last year, and they are right now in groups. They're going through a punch list of how they're redoing every component of LinkedIn. Right now, as we speak, they are in groups. They're making all kinds of changes to make groups more popular in LinkedIn. And what happens when they do this, the same as Facebook. Facebook is aggressively pushing groups right now. They're aggressively pushing groups because they plan on pixeling and letting you advertise to groups. I know, because it just rolled out. We are now allowed to pixel everybody in our group so we can run ads to those people. They just rolled it out, and there's more to come. So when you're an early adopter doing something that platforms like Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook want you to do, they reward you big time. So when Facebook started coming out with video, if you switched your ads to video ads, you were greatly rewarded. They gave you the cheapest cost per opt-in you may have ever seen, because they want you to do more of it. So groups are in that state where they're wanting you to do more of this. But you got to first create the group. You're going to have to post content in the beginning. You're going to have to share it with your email database and on your other social media channels. You're going to have to start conversations. This is one of the most difficult things we've done. We went for 2 years with the group, and we had 3 groups, only one is big. The other 2 still we've never got off the ground, because we had to create content, get engagement, put people in there that will also create content, get engagement, and talk. Those things become very important and do take time. Invite others. Again, we invite through all of our social channels. We invite through email as a result into our groups. Then we monitor the group, post, reward those who post, okay? We have special incentives we give those people that reward the most. We give them a call out. Hey, Joe James, thanks, man. Thanks for posting. We see you're actively helping with the group. We really appreciate that. And you know what? When we do that, they're engaging more. So reward those people that actually post. So here's an example of our Facebook group. You can see our numbers are down the time I took this. We had 39% less new members, 21% less engagement. Those kind of look like bad percentages, but look at the numbers. 671 new members in the last 28 days. How would you like, at no cost to you at all, to have 671 people following your group that didn't cost you a dime? Now, to give you an example, if we spent money on Facebook to be able to really acquire those customers, like if we actually spent let's say $4 to acquire them, that would be $2,700 we would have spent in ad spend to get these people to follow us, and it cost us nothing in the group. You can see that we have 15,000 post, comments, and reactions. Think about that. 28 days, 15,000 comments, posts, and reactions in our group. 15,000. That's a pretty active group. And you can see here the total members of the group climbing. We now ask them if they'd like to get free information. We give them a chance to opt in as they come into the group, and about 500 a month are opting in, coming into the group. And again, at $4 a piece, that's thousands of dollars we get in free opt-ins for the actual group. And again, this is a captive audience. We go to this audience, we say, we're doing a webinar, tons of them get on our webinar. Whatever we need, this group is joining in. So you're really creating a very good place where you can then continue to market. Open other channels. So email's dying, a slow death. Look, it's just the way that it is. You got to open up text messenger. You got to open up text, and you got to open up Facebook Messenger. Our stats right now are over a 90% open rate. Well, here, I'll give it to you. Open rates on emails in general across the board are 21%. 98% of text messages are open and read within 2 minutes. 78 to 90% of Facebook messages are opened, and the text is pretty high up there too. So you go from email, which gets 20% open rate on average, and I promise many of you are probably not getting that, to something that's getting 80, 90% open rates on average. Look, you got to build Facebook Messenger audience. You got to start using text messages, because these are what these platforms like Facebook want you to start using Messenger. So giveaway weekly training only on this channel. So we have something called a text training tip. You can only ever get our text training tips by texting tips to 855-982-1020, I think, something like that. So with that, you only ever get tips if you text that number. And then we don't like insult you and start texting you all the time. We literally only email you once a week with a video tip, a 1 to 3 minute video tip. But then whenever we have a special promotion, we'll do a promotion just through text, and we'll send somebody 2 texts in a week or 3 texts that week, once every 3-4 months with a promotion. So again, giveaway weekly training. Consider giveaways, special training, gifts, other things to give away exclusively from these channels. We have free guides you can only get if you text to get into our actual text list, for example. Promote these in your other channels, including email. Use ManyChat, which is a great automation service to attract new opt-ins and gives you automation funnels that you could basically create on Messenger. Use Messenger to promote your webinars, your live streams, specials, reminders, anything along this line that you can use. So resources that can help you do these things we talked about today. HarmonBrothersUniversity.com. That's where you're going to get great training on viral videos. Guys, look, I'll tell you, it's not cheap. It's like $2,000 to $3,000. So I gave you the gist of what to focus on, but I can tell you that the training for me was well worth the actual investment. Contagious. This is the best book of all the ones I've read when it comes to virality. If you just listen to Contagious, you'll get the core principles of what makes content go viral. It'll give you a huge advantage to others that don't read it. GroupHigh, Sission, UpInfluence, my favorite 3 platforms to get influencers. Not a lot of money. They're all a little bit different. Some are thousands of dollars, 10,000 plus. Some are like very cheap. So look into your sources and find one that gives you what you need as affordable as possible. And by the way, you'll get media sources from here too, not just people with social followings. Trust Me, I'm Lying, written by Ryan Holiday. This is a great book that explains the whole system of media. Explains to you, and this is a guy that specializes in media manipulation. This is what he did. Plenty of stories of major things you've seen that came from his manipulation of media. Does a very good job of explaining media, how it works, and what you need to do to actually control it. And ManyChat.com, that is where you can come in and get a great automation system for Facebook Messenger. So I don't typically have a lot of questions, but I'm going to go ahead and open this up to questions. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead and get them typed in. I want to make sure they're answered. Looks like you answered a lot of them. Can't see. Oh no. So you guys could never see the screen. Ah, man, I'm supposed to do it. Okay, guys, I'm really, really, really sorry and embarrassed that I never hit show my screen, and you all were typing in comments the whole time. And I ignored you all. I didn't even open comments till this was done. So my apology. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I will make sure slide deck. I will make sure this slide deck is available to you. I'm really sorry, guys. I feel horrible about this because usually I'm pretty good at paying attention to your guys' warnings that I didn't open comments till we were done. So I'm really sorry. I'm going to get this webinar up in the back office, and I'm going to get the slide deck up for this in the back office as well. So hopefully by tomorrow you can get the slide deck. I can only apologize to you and make sure that I get the slide deck up so you guys can access this, the video to go with it. And next week we'll have the other 10, and I will have video and audio. So, or I will have the screen. So my apology, guys. Usually I open the questions and know what's going on. For some reason, this one I didn't, and I didn't know till the end. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I will make sure this is available for playback tomorrow, and then I'll get you the PowerPoint slides as well. And then that way you can actually use the PowerPoint with the video, or just use the slides to go through and get a bunch of ideas. And I promise you, next week I'll fix this problem so it doesn't happen again. So my apology, no other questions. I'm going to wrap this up, and I will make sure that this gets into the back office with the PowerPoint no later than tomorrow. Thanks everybody very much for tuning in. If you have any other questions or anything we can do to help you as you're offering business credit financing, just reach out to us and let us know. Thanks everybody. Have a great day.